Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Inshallah, today we're reading from Surah Hajj and we're up to verse number 16. So that's Juz 17. We'll just start with a quick short adhkar, inshallah. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن محمدا عبدك ورسولك اللهم بك أصبحنا وبك أمسينا وبك نحيا وبك نموت وإليك النشور اللهم عافني في بدني اللهم عافني في سمعي اللهم عافني في بصري لا إله إلا أنت اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الكفر والفقر وأعوذ بك من عذاب القبر لا إله إلا أنت آمين إن شاء الله. Okay, verse number 16. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The sole guide and judge. And so we reveal this Quran as clear verses, and Allah certainly guides whoever He wills. Indeed, the believers, Jews, Sabians, Christians, Maggi, and the polytheists, Allah will judge between them all on Judgment Day. Surely Allah is a witness over all things.
The Magi refers to the Majus. It's the only verse in the Quran that's being mentioned here. It means the fire worshippers, the Zoroastrians. There was some discussions in our WhatsApp chat group, some people asking about the Sabians. I think there were some good answers. There were two communities in North Iraq. One of them used to follow Yahya alayhi salam. They were somehow connected to him. And they're very into baptism and dunking themselves in the water. And another one believed in the stars, and they were somehow connected to the Prophet. So the tafsirs mentioned one of these two groups. The first three were generally considered Ahl Kitab, Jews, Sabians, and Christians. As for the Majus, there were times that some scholars did consider them Ahl Kitab, but I think majority would say they weren't. You can't put the whole verse in the Ahl Kitab category because it also says, and the mushriks and the polytheists, وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا. So this is not like the other verses in the Quran where it says, as long as they believe in God and the hereafter, they have nothing to fear. This verse is not really saying that. It's saying these categories, mentioning the believers and the rest, Allah will judge on them on the Day of Judgment. Some have said that other than the believers, all the other categories of people somehow fell into some sort of shirk. Allahu Alam.
Submission to the Almighty. Do you not see that to Allah bow down in submission all those in the heavens and all those on the earth, as well as the sun, the moon, the stars, the mountains, the trees, and all living beings, as well as many humans, while many are deserving of punishment? And whoever Allah disgraces, none can honor. Surely Allah does what He wills.
Our Prophet made dua, Allahumma akrimna wa la tuhinna wa zidna wa la tanqusna. Oh Allah, honor us and do not debase us. This is a sajda verse, right? It's one of the sajda verses. However, I think this is the only surah that has two sajda verses, Surah Hajj. But there's a slight difference between the Ahnaf and those who follow the Shafi fiqh. Which one you meant to do sajda on? No,
the believers and disbelievers. These are two opposing groups that disagree about their Lord. As for the disbelievers, garments of fire will be cut out for them, and boiling water will be poured over their heads, melting whatever is in their bellies along with their skin. And awaiting them are maces of iron. Whenever they try to escape from hell out of anguish, they will be forced back into it and will be told, taste the torment of burning. But Allah will surely admit those who believe and do good into gardens, under which rivers flow, where they will be adorned with bracelets of gold and pearls, and their clothing will be silk. For they have been guided to the best of speech, and they have been guided to the commendable path. Look at this commendable path. Another possible translation is, and they have been guided to the path of the praiseworthy God.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Al-Hamid.
Sarat al-Hamid could be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name. The best of speech has been translated as, the kalima shahada.
إلى الوهود إلى الطيب من القول. That part.
Yeah, at-tayyib min al-qawl.
Violating the sacred mosque. Indeed, those who persist in disbelief and hinder others from the way of Allah and from the sacred mosque, which we have appointed for all people, residents and visitors alike, along with whoever intends to deviate by doing wrong in it, we will cause them to taste a painful punishment. The pilgrimage. And remember when we assigned to Abraham the site of the house, saying, "Do not associate anything with me in worship, and purify my house for those who circle the Kaaba, stand in prayer and bow and prostrate themselves. Call all people to the pilgrimage. They will come to you on foot and on every lean camel from every distant path, so they may obtain the benefits in store for them, and pronounce the name of Allah on appointed days over the sacrificial animals He has provided for them. So eat from their meat and feed the desperately poor. Then let them groom themselves, fulfill their vows, and circle the ancient house."
Yeah, earlier on it says those who are living within the haram of Mecca, and those are not, they're all equal. According to some Ahnaf scholars, to rent houses for guests over there is seen as makruh. It should be a hospitality of the Meccans. Maybe this oil money in Saudi Arabia can be used to serve the pilgrims a bit more, instead of some of these very high expensive rates that's coming out. Allahu Alam.
Total devotion to Allah. That is so, and whoever honors the riches of Allah, it is best for them in the sight of their Lord. The meat of cattle has been made lawful for you, except what has already been recited to you. So shun the impurity of idolatry and shun words of falsehood. Be upright in devotion to Allah, associating none with Him in worship. For whoever associates others with Allah is like someone who has fallen from the sky and is either snatched away by birds or swept by the wind to a remote place. That is so, and whoever honors the symbols of Allah, it is certainly out of the piety of the heart. You may benefit from sacrificial animals for an appointed term, then their place of sacrifice is at the ancient house.
Yeah, twice it says, what was it? Man yu'addim sha'air Allahi. Whoever honors the symbols of Allah or the symbols of Islam, these are very significant. It's considered some of the most important sunnahs to follow. At the turn of the century, a lot of the Muslim countries went through these phases where many of these countries started abandoning some of these symbols, Turkey being an example, with abandoning the adhan in Arabic. So the scholars that live there, they really emphasize this, that it's, even in our times, anything that symbolizes Islam and religion, we have to honor it. Hajj, the adhan, mosques, because that's a sign of taqwa. Qawl al-zur, the last verse 30, like those who give false testimony. According to one hadith, it's similar to committing shirk. And hence the verse of the Quran, فَاجْتَنِبُوا الرِّجْسَ مِنَ الْأَوْثَانِ. So shun the filth of idols and shun fair wrought lies proffered as truth. Sometimes as Muslims we have to be very carefully about our testimonies. It doesn't matter if it's in Muslim lands or non-Muslim lands. It's usually the example of shirk is given to it, like it's almost like committing partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Just this parable here, I was reading a tafsir on this, and it said falling from the sky is like falling from the fortress of Iman. Once you fall, you get exposed to shaitan snatching you away, or your nafs just sweeping you to a further place, from faith, from the religion altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good news for the humble. For every community we appointed a rite of sacrifice so that they may pronounce the name of Allah over the sacrificial animals He has provided for them. For your God is only one God, so submit yourselves to Him alone, and give good news or profit to the humble, those whose hearts tremble at the remembrance of Allah, who patiently endure whatever may befall them, and who establish prayer and donate from what we have provided for them. What's this translated as, Ustaz Sadiq, with Sheikh
Which one?
Mukhbitin, the humble?
Sheikh Nuz got it as and give glad tidings to the humble in serene devotion. It's used a few times in the Quran.
Yeah, okay.
The real definition is what the verse follows: those whose hearts tremble at the remembrance of Allah, who patiently endure.
I have those who humble themselves.
You expect a definition that talks about showing humility, etc., but I guess perhaps that's what's at the core of it.
No, the one that the translation that I have says those who humble themselves. So it's closer to what you're saying, Ustad Ahmed.
Purpose of sacrificial animals. We have made sacrificial camels and cattle among the symbols of Allah, in which there is much good for you. So pronounce the name of Allah over them when they are lined up for sacrifice. Once they have fallen lifeless on their sides, you may eat from their meat and feed the needy, those who do not beg and those who do. In this way, we have subjected these animals to you so that you may be grateful. Neither their meat nor blood reaches Allah, rather it is your piety that reaches Him. This is how He has subjected them to you so that you may proclaim the greatness of Allah for what He has guided you to and give good news to the good doers.
What did I have for Bud? It said camels, right? Yawan?
Yeah, camels and cattle.
Yeah, the usually Buddha is used for camels only.
Here I have camels and cattle.
Yeah, there was a bit of a debate in early Islam. Some people accused the Prophet ﷺ for using the word Buddhan for things that are not camels. But there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that whoever comes to the Jummah prayer early, it's like he's sacrificed a camel. And then if he comes a bit later, it's like he's sacrificed a cow. But the word Buddhan is used usually exclusively for camels. Allah. This notion that, their blood and, sorry to cut you, their blood and flesh doesn't reach Allah, but the taqwa has. I always understood that very common. But some particular, perhaps, groups of Christianity, they actually felt like the way it was presented to me, I remember back in the uni days, was they were saying that it was as if till the coming of Jesus, they believed, sacrifice was to be done. But then after Jesus, Hasha, was sacrificed on the cross, then it was only the piety and the heart that was looked at. I'm not making too much sense, but our understanding of that the blood and the taqwa, the blood and the flesh doesn't reach Allah. It's almost like they believe that understanding came after the crucifixion of Jesus. Allahu Adam.
What did he say? I didn't understand what you said.
Like I had some evangelical friends. The way they presented the way the Jewish community was doing sacrifices was as if they thought, these evangelical friends of mine, that there was actually the actual blood and flesh that Pasha, God was benefiting from. But it was after Jesus' crucifixion, alayhi salam, which the Quran says he was not crucified. It changed their understanding of that sacrifice.
Added a spiritual dimension to it, perhaps, right, Ustaz Sadaq?
According to them, yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Yeah,
the Abrahamic
say,
faith.
yeah, they kind of actually, when it comes to the sha'ir, this is an interesting point. I didn't think about this, but it connects. They themselves believe that the sha'ir are basically rules and laws and so on and so forth, that all of that was eliminated with the crucifixion of, with the human sacrifice of what they say was the crucifixion of Jesus. So then they say that Jesus taught the spirit of the law, and he went with the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, and the spirit of the law is what is the core and what is the law. But that has created a situation in Christianity where everything is based on emotion and feeling. You know, the sha'ir, the rules are important as well as the spirit, and that's why we have the objectives of the Sharia, and we have the textual reference, and we have the practice of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, is the implementation. But yeah, they felt as though the New Testament canceled everything out that was law, that was Sharia, and then the Sharia now is love and forgiveness.
Yeah. Thank you, Imam Yusuf. Permission to fight in self-defense. Indeed, Allah defends those who believe. Surely Allah does not like whoever is deceitful, ungrateful. Permission to fight back is hereby granted to those being fought, for they have been wronged. And Allah is truly most capable of helping them prevail. They are those who have been expelled from their homes for no reason other than proclaiming, "Our Lord is Allah." Had Allah not repelled the aggression of some people by means of others, destruction would have surely claimed monasteries, churches, synagogues, and mosques in which Allah's name is often mentioned. Allah will certainly help those who stand up for Him. Allah is truly all-powerful, almighty. They are those who, if established in the land by us, would perform prayer, pay alms tax, encourage what is good, and forbid what is evil. And with Allah rests the outcome of all affairs.
This is the very first verse that it said that has permitted fighting. And so, but it's very clear because of بِأَنَّهُمْ ظُلِمُوا, because they've been unjustly wronged. And just two things. One, I mentioned that if it was not Allah, using one group to defend another group, these monasteries and places of worship of the Christians and Jews and the Muslims would have been destroyed. But here, the last bit, يُذْكَرُ فِيهَا اسْمُ اللَّهِ كَثِيرًا, places in which God's name is mentioned plenty. Some translators attribute it only to the mosques. And the way Dr. Mustafa Khattab has translated it, as if he's put the comma and then it says, and mosques in which Allah's name is often mentioned. That's a popular opinion. But in Baydawi's tafsir, it says it can also apply to all of them. So churches, monasteries, mosques, and synagogues and mosques, comma, in which Allah's name is often mentioned, in all four of them. And that's why, because the whole verse is saying God is doing this because He's defending these places of worship.
I didn't want to go backward, but because you raised it, and I didn't want to leave it there. So the issue of Buddha uh, or the issue of Butna or Batna, you mentioned that in Ayah 36, so there's two lugha. I mean, there's lughatan, the two ways of dealing with it in the Arabic language. In any event, so Imam al-Qurtubi rahmatullahi alayhi says, اختلف العلماء في البدن والبدن هل تطلق على غير العبل من البقر أم لا. So he says that the scholars differ. First of all, he said that prior to that, he says there's two points of language that pertain to it. And then he takes the differences back to the Sahaba, to Ibn Masud, then he includes Ata and Imam Shafi'i. So they compose one school that say no, that it only pertains to camels. And then he relates that Malik and Abu Hanifa say that it does. And then he goes into some detail. But I just want to say that difference is not a later difference. It is not just, there's some benefits that come from differing on the position. And Imam Qurtubi, he goes through a long discussion on it.
Yeah, I remember reading some sections of Imam Tahawi as well. He was defending because the hadith implied that Buddha applied to non-camels, and some of the rationalists, the Mu'tazila extreme rationalists, were almost accusing the Prophet ﷺ of having bad Arabic, wrong Arabic. And then Imam Tahawi there goes to show that actually in all the prophetic ahadith, hadith marfu', the Prophet ﷺ used the word budna only for camels. And he brings that hadith about those who come to the mosque, starting with those who get the reward of sacrificing a camel, all the way to the one who's like sacrificing or giving sadaqah, an egg, for charity, distinguishing it. And he says that the only narrations that mention budun for camels mistakenly, not for camels, sorry, for cattle, are some narrations from the narrators have made a mistake, and it goes back to the Sahabi, not to the Prophet ﷺ. So there were people actually trying to accuse hadith of having incorrect Arabic.
But did they accuse the Prophet of that, or did they just say that this hadith? It sounds more.
So they're accusing the hadith scholars of accepting that as hadith.
Yeah.
But with that approach, they were very close to discounting a lot of hadith. Anyway, I guess we're digressing into another topic. Ustaz Ahmed saying we need to cover more pages today than others, and he's on point.
No worries. Good points being made, inshallah. Warning to Meccan pagans. If they deny you, O Prophet, so did the people of Noah before them, as well as the tribes of Ad and Thamud, the people of Abraham, the people of Lot, and the residents of Midian. And Moses was denied too. But I delayed the fate of the disbelievers until their appointed time, then seized them. And how severe was my response. Many other societies we have destroyed for persisting in wrongdoing, leaving them in total ruin. Many are also the abandoned wells and lofty palaces. Have they not traveled throughout the land so their hearts may reason and their ears may listen? Indeed, it is not the eyes that are blind, but it is the hearts in the chest that grow blind. They challenge you, O Prophet, to hasten the torment, and Allah will never fail in His promise, but a day with your Lord is indeed like 1,000 years by your counting. Many are the societies whose end we delayed while they did wrong, then seized them, and to me is the final return. The Prophet's duty. Say, O Prophet, O humanity, I'm only sent to you with a clear warning. So those who believe and do good will have forgiveness and an honorable provision. But those who strive to discredit our revelations, they will be the residents of the hellfire. Satan's influence. Whenever we sent a messenger or a prophet before you, O Prophet, and he recited our revelations, Satan would influence people's understanding of his recitation. But eventually Allah would eliminate Satan's influence. Then Allah would firmly establish His revelations, and Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. All that so He may make Satan's influence a trial for those hypocrites whose hearts are sick and those disbelievers whose hearts are hardened. Surely the wrongdoers are totally engrossed in opposition. This is also so that those gifted with knowledge would know that this revelation is the truth from your Lord, so they have faith in it, and so their hearts would submit humbly to it. And Allah surely guides the believers to the straight path. Yet the disbelievers will persist in doubt about this revelation until the hour takes them by surprise or the torment of a terminating day comes to them.
Two or three verses here often has caused a lot of debate amongst tafsir scholars, particularly verse number 52 and 3. But maybe as a summary, it's suffice to say that our Prophet was never affected by shaitan in any way, shape, or form when receiving the revelation and conveying the revelation. And many of the tafsir scholars go out of the way to very strongly defend that, because this is something very core to the Islam. Quran being protected, coming to the Prophet's heart. As for what those words could suggest, here Sheikh Nu says, "No sent we any messenger prophet ever before you, save that when he aspired that all might be guided." So when the Prophet wanted for the community to be guided, the devil cast amidst his hope doubts and contrivances into hearts. And so on, but it's called the Ayat al-Gharaniq. But I guess because of time and considerations, we'll keep these discussions short.
But that translation, to be honest with you, it's a little off. When I look at not the translation you just read, but the translation that we're using, and I think that it is important to kind of, because that's a heavy thing. Here, for never have we sent any messenger or prophet before you, but that when he recited God's revelation, hoping ardently to guide people, Satan cast evil whisperings into people's thoughts about what in hope he had recited. However, God annuls whatever Satan may cast to obscure truth, then God confirms his revealed signs. The translation,
it's similar.
The translation that we're reading, kind of, I didn't get the same feel.
It's similar. Basically, what it's doing is that the Satan casting is Mustafa Khattab is saying he's casting it into people's understanding of his recitation.
Yeah, no, that's the same thing here, but it kind of, it just for me didn't flow as well as Dr. Ahmed Zaki, but that's fine.
Okay, but they've all been careful. They've been dealing with the verse carefully, Yani. They've avoided the problematic. There's been some speak very explicitly. People might be wondering what is that problematic. The problematic interpretation is when the Satan's casting is attributed as if Satan is casting into the prophet's understanding or the prophet's wishes. That's where it starts touching the sensitive topic of the ismat of al-Anbiya.
Justice on Judgment Day. All authority on that day is for Allah alone. He will judge between them. So those who believe and do good will be in the gardens of bliss. But those who disbelieve and deny our revelations, it is they who will suffer a humiliating punishment. As for those who immigrate in the cause of Allah and then are martyred or die, Allah will indeed grant them a good provision. Surely Allah is the best provider. He will certainly admit them into a place they will be pleased with, for Allah is truly all-knowing, most forbearing. Divine justice. That is so, and whoever retaliates in equivalent to the injury they have received, and they are wronged again, Allah will certainly help them. Surely Allah is ever pardoning or forgiving.
See, people taking revenge for what their haqq is, they're almost being praised. Yes, Islam encourages forgiveness, but وَمَنْ عَاقَبَ بِمِثْلِ مَا عُوقِبَ بِهِ. As long as he doesn't go beyond that, but seeking retaliation when being wronged is almost praised and loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Especially when a lack of seeking of that retaliation encourages the wrongdoer to do more wrong. In those times, particularly if the wrongdoer, if it's an individual, it's one thing, but if it's a leader or a tyrannical leader, well, to make tyrants work harder is a good thing. Musa alayhi salam did not submit himself to Pharaoh. He went to Midian when he was being chased. No.
But it is better to forgive. That's from taqwa. I mean, as you said, depending on the situation, but just as a general rule, right, Ustaz Sadaq?
Yeah, forgive when if it's a person to person thing. Yeah.
Allah's power. That is because Allah causes the night to merge into the day.
Sometimes, sorry, the Prophet said, help your brother if he's the oppressed or oppressing. They said, Ya Rasul, we know if he's oppressed, how to help him. How do we help him by oppressed if he's oppressing? He said to stop him from oppressing. If forgiving someone encourages them to do more, particularly if they're in a position of authority, there are people under them, then that's not forgiving. That's sometimes seen as, cowardice. But obviously, I know you're referring to Ustaz Ahmed to one-on-one relation when someone is taking his personal rights. Like our Prophet, my mother Aisha described him, he was very forgiving when his own personal rights was taken. But as soon as it touched on Allah's commands, he would sometimes, be like a lion.
But here in this context, we should keep the context. We shouldn't bring another ayat. And this here, the context is not talking about forgiveness; it's talking about equity. And and then prior to it is, as to those who have emigrated in the path of Allah, then are killed or die, most surely God will provide them with the most excellent provision in the hereafter. For indeed God alone is the best of providers. And then a little bit after it brings up, and one ayah after brings up the law of equity. Because if we to be honest with you, I think with this stuff we should be clear. In Islam, there's law of justice. Christianity played that game of turn the cheek, and they always separated between what goes on in society and what goes on in religion. And then the ethics became separated, and then they doubted in Christianity. Then it all fell apart at a certain point in time. So here the law of equity is being emphasized. Maybe in another context, in another set of circumstances, forgiveness is brought to the fore.
Yeah. In a few places in the Quran, الذين استنصروا, those who seek help against when they're being oppressed. It's said in a في صيغة المدح, like in a way of praise. Naam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows the night to enter on the day. Night is always mentioned before the day because the night is the asl, is the origin. Light became secondary in terms of, I think, order of creation. Allah. That's what I've heard.
Allah's power. That is because Allah causes the night to merge into the day and the day into the night. Indeed, Allah is all-hearing, all-seeing. That is because Allah alone is the truth, and what they invoke besides Him is falsehood, and Allah alone is truly the Most High, all-great. Do you not see that Allah sends down rain from the sky, then the earth becomes green? Surely Allah is most subtle, all-aware. To Him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth. Allah alone is truly the self-sufficient, praiseworthy.
We've got about 12 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, 12, 13 different names on this page. No.
Yeah, caught my attention too. Allah's grace. Do you not see that Allah has subjected to you whatever is in the earth, as well as the ships that sail through the sea by His command? He keeps the sky from falling down on the earth except by His permission. Surely Allah is ever gracious and most merciful to humanity. And He is the one who gave you life, then will cause you to die, and then will bring you back to life. But surely humankind is ever ungrateful. One message, different laws. For every community we appointed a code of life to follow, so do not let them dispute with you, O Prophet, in this matter, and invite all to your Lord, for you are truly on the right guidance. But if they argue with you, then say, Allah knows best what you do. Allah will judge between you all on Judgment Day regarding your differences. Do not know that Allah fully knows whatever is in the heavens and the earth? Surely it is all written in a record that is certainly easy for Allah. Almighty Allah or false gods. Yet they worship besides Allah that for which He has sent down no authority and of which they have no knowledge. The wrongdoers will have no helper. Whenever our clear revelations are recited to them, you, O Prophet, recognize rage on the faces of the disbelievers as if they are going to snap at those who recite our revelations to them. Say, shall I inform you of something far more enraging than that? It is the fire with which Allah has threatened those who disbelieve. What an evil destination. The fly challenge. O humanity, a lesson is set forth, so listen to it carefully. Those idols you invoke besides Allah can never create so much as a fly, even if they all were to come together for that. And if a fly were to snatch anything away from them, they cannot even retrieve it from the fly. How powerless are those who invoke and those invoked. They have not shown Allah the reverence He deserves. Surely Allah is all-powerful, almighty. Divine.
Very poetic, almost. I don't mean to say poetic, obviously, وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ الشَّاعِرِ, but in a praiseworthy way. The imagery, the tahaddi that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that just like you can't create a surah, a chapter of the Quran, when it comes to the physical universe, you can't even create the fly of a wing. And then talks about how weak is the sought and the seeker. ضعف الطالب والمطلوب. And then finally, and you have not given Allah the true estimation that He fully deserves. You know, scholars said that at the end of our du'as, after praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and making everything, they said you can finish it by saying, مَا سَبَّحْنَاكَ حَقَّ تَسْبِيحِكَ يَا سُبْحَانَ مَا حَمِدْنَاكَ حَقَّ حَمْدِكَ يَا مَحْمُودَ مَا عَبَدْنَاكَ حَقَّ عِبَادِكَ يَا مَعْبُودَ. And right at the end, مَا قَدَّرْنَاكَ حَقَّ قَدْرِكَ يَا Allah. We have not been able to glorify you as your glorifying deserves. We have not been able to worship you as your worshiping deserves, or praise you and thank you as your thank and praise deserves. And we've not been able to have an estimation of you. What's the word used here? They have not reckoned Allah His awesome due. Just like our Prophet said, لا أحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. I'm not able to count the praises of you. You are as you praise yourself.
Divine choice. Allah selects messengers from both angels and people, for Allah is truly all-hearing, all-seeing. He knows what is ahead of them and what is behind them, and to Allah all matters will be returned for judgment. Advice to the believers. O believers, bow down, prostrate yourselves, worship your Lord, and do what is good so that you may be successful. Strive for the cause of Allah in the way He deserves, for it is He who has chosen you and laid upon you no hardship in the religion, the way of your forefather Abraham. It is Allah who named you the ones who submit in the earlier scriptures and in this Quran, so that the messenger may be a witness over you and that you may be witnesses over humanity. So establish prayer, pay alms tax, and hold fast to Allah. He alone is your guardian. What an excellent guardian and what an excellent helper. Okay.
You know, the issue keeps coming up for me over and over again, and I'm adamant about this point that until we centralize the Quran as a primary font of knowledge, and we put the books, especially of like things like of Aqidah and so on and so forth, as secondary, we're going to always continuously have problems. Like we just went through a series of ayat that teach us about who Allah is, that there's no equivalent at all in any book of Aqidah or any orientation, but we keep making these secondary sources the primary sources to learn who Allah is. And yes, I know that sometimes there's some differences of opinion, so we have to study these other books. But in reality, even if you were to take something as a simple text as Aqidah Tahawiyah, which sometimes even when it comes to Aqidah Tahawiyah, not to be controversial, sometimes the human choice, it seems like it's not there a little bit, but when you go that, because that's a problem that you find in, do we have choice, or is it Allah's qadr that back and forth? You find it resolved in the Quran easily. But when but then when it comes to philosophically, it's a difficult problem. And so the Aqidah book, it takes you at a distance from it. That's just as an example. But if you were to, aside from that type of problem in Aqidah Tahawiyah, if you were to really just go through Aqidah Tahawiyah, but then have a great focus on the Quran, then you see that he is trying to summarize points that are in the Quranic text that become tenets of belief. But we won't see how it is that Allah presents these things to us in so many different dimensions, speaking to the human being, not just from the rational side. And that's where a lot of Aqidah debates have only just been solely from the rational side and only using a certain type of reason as well. That's another thing. Like Ilm al-Kalam, much of it has been using Aristotelian syllogistic reason only. And then we champion that as like, this is the Aqidah of the prophets. So yes, they're doing a job to protect what it is that the prophets have brought. But alayhim wassalam, but we have to, as an ummah, we have to centralize revelation. We have to centralize revelation. It's already that majority of us, we're cut off from revelation in its pure form because of the lack of the Arabic language. So then it's like on top of that, we're cut off from the tradition. So then we're not centralizing familiarity with the revelation itself. And that's happening even with those who are Arabic speakers. The next surah is going to talk to us also about the qualities of the believers. There's not going to be a lesson like that in any other book other than the Quran. So centralizing the Quran, if we can do that, I think that we can at least present something to the next generation that will allow them to preserve their deen.
Inshallah.
Allahu Akbar.
Sheikh Yusuf, let's hear those lessons from you if you don't mind, inshallah.
I would say, like the Egyptians say to Sheikh Yusuf, La fudda fuka, ya Sheikh Yusuf. Very well said. I couldn't agree more. We really need to bring the Quran centrality back into it. No text, no matter how great it is, can replace the Quran.
Sheikh Yusuf, would you like to read?
Sure. This the Surah Al-Mu'minun. This Meccan surah emphasizes that the believers are guaranteed success. This is in the first ayah. Whereas the disbelievers are bound to fail. And this is in ayat 117. Sorry, I'm on the computer. What page do you have in the actual PDF?
286.
Sorry. I hit the PDF and it took me.
No worries. Maybe
You want? I'll read it to him.
I got.
Like
I know.
the,
I got it back.
no
okay.
worries.
This Meccan sort of emphasizes that the believers are guaranteed success, verse 1, or ayat 1, whereas the disbelievers are bound to fail, ayat 117. Like the previous surah, it makes the case for Allah's oneness as well as His power to create and resurrect. The last part is dedicated to the judgment of the believers and the disbelievers, focusing on the fate of the wicked who abuse the believers. This theme extends to the next surah. So this is a tie-in. There's a tie-in. It says, like the previous surah, it makes a case for Allah's oneness, etc., etc. And then it says uh, that the last part is dedicated to the judgment of the believers and the disbelievers, focusing on the fate of the wicked who abuse the believers. This theme extends to the next surah. That's what we call ilm al-munasabat, the tie-in between the surah that comes before, the surah that comes after, and how they relate thematically, or how at least the last part of the last surah ties into the beginning part of the new surah, and the ending the same thing of the surah that you're studying, how it ties into the beginning of a new surah. That's something that has to be paid attention to. That's called ilm al-munasabat. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The true believers, successful indeed are the believers, those who humble themselves in prayer, those who avoid idle talk, those who pay alms tax, those who guard their chastity, except with their wives or those bondwomen, those bondwomen in their possession. For them they are free from blame. Whoever seeks beyond that are the transgressors. The believers are also those who are true to their trust and covenants, and those who are properly observant of their prayers. Allah allows us to establish all of those. These are the ones who will be awarded paradise as their own. They will be there forever. The creation of humans. And indeed, we created humankind from an extractive clay, then placed each human as a sperm drop in a secure place. Then we developed the drop into a clinging clot of blood, then developed the clot into a lump of flesh, then developed the lump into bones, then clothed the bones with flesh. Then we brought it into a being as a new creation. So blessed is Allah, the best of creators. After that, you will surely die. Then on the day of judgment, you will be resurrected. Allah's power. And indeed, we created above you 7 levels of heaven. We are never unmindful of our creation. We send down rain from the sky in perfect measure, causing it to soak into the earth. And we are surely able to take it away. With it, we produce for you gardens of palm trees and grapevines, in which there are abundant fruits, and from which you may eat, as well as olive trees which grow at Mount Sinai, providing oil and a condiment to eat. And there is certainly a lesson for you in cattle, whose bellies we give you milk to drink.
And in them are many other benefits.
And in them and in them are many other benefits for you, and from them you may eat, and you are carried upon some of them and upon ships. SubhanAllah. Prophet Noah. Indeed,
So
we
just
sent Noah.
sorry, sir, Sheikh. So there's a hadith that the Prophet said. The first 11 verses, was it? The first 10 verses. Whoever acts according to these 10 verses, they'll enter into paradise. It's a very nice, beautiful summary of Islam. Many khatibs have given khutbahs about these 10 verses. And then when the mind is sort of wowed, amazed by the character of a believer who has these 10 verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the attention to anfusi signs at the microcosm, about the creation of the human being at an embryonic level where it's so small. And then he goes from the anfusi, the microcosm, to the afaqi signs, the macrocosm of the heavens and the earth at a larger scale. and then his blessings on earth, and how everything's been made musakhar for human beings. I saw at this first page of Surah Mu'minun very similar to the first page of Surah Hajj. Surah Hajj talks about the tremendous imagery of the Day of Judgment, where even a breastfeeding mother will leave her baby.
Mm-hmm.
But then to not overwhelm the mind, the Quran changes scenery, and it talks about how a baby is developed in the mother's embryo. This one does the same. It talks about these great qualities of the believers, and then, and how they will go into Jannah, and then to not overwhelm the mind again, it goes back to the small, something tangible everyone can relate to, focuses the mind. The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes the scenery and doesn't let us get overwhelmed by one or the other, it's a really amazing.
The tasrif.
The tasrif,
Tasrif al-Quran. That's important because remember, a question came up some chapters back, when we were, I think, still in Baqarah. It came up in the group about the different themes and how it is that they relate. And what you just mentioned is important from the angle of how it is that the Quran deals with the relationship of communicating, how it is that the Quran communicates the revelation to the human being and keeps that relationship going. That relationship between the human being and the revelation, so that the human being gets what they need, but it's not overwhelmed. And the reality is, life is like that. We go through tragedies, and then our memory is a blessing for us as well, because it allows us to forget, ironically. So we forget the tragedy and we can have a new set of memories. Life itself has that tasrif in it. But one of the things that you mentioned that's beautiful, that I think I haven't seen too many places, not even in the Risala is openly saying it, but I think that the Risala Nur, I think that we have to detail that point that you mentioned. What types of signs are we dealing with? We need kind of a complementary reader to the Quran, which gives us like, okay, this surah has these types of signs in it. The Risala Nur, it focuses with the signage, or it focuses with the different types of ayat. But I think that pointing that out directly in the Quran, and teaching people to read those things back into the Quran is extremely important. And I appreciate that you.
Some of these notes I've taken when I've gone through the translation of the Quran in previous years from in Turkish. So these opinions are not always mine, although I say them as if they're mine. I'm not always quoting the source, just in the interest of time. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Yusuf.
The Prophet Nuh, indeed we sent to his people, he declared, "O my people, worship Allah alone. You have no God other than him. Will you not then fear him?" But the disbelieving chiefs of his people said to the masses, "This is only a human like you, who wants to be superior to you. Had Allah willed, he could have easily sent down angels instead. We have never heard of this in the history of our forefathers. He is simply insane. So bear with him for a while." The flood. Noah prayed, "My Lord, help me, because they have denied me." So we inspired him, build the ark under our watchful eyes and directions. Then when our command comes and the oven bursts with water, take on board a pair of every species along with your family, except those against whom the decree to drown has already been passed. And do not plead with me for those who have done wrong, for they will surely be drowned. Then when you and those with you have settled in the ark, say, all praises for Allah, who saved us from the wrongdoing people. And pray, my Lord, allow me a blessed landing, for you are the best accommodator. Surely in this are lessons, and we always put people to the test. The Prophet Hud. Then we raised another generation after them, and sent to them a messenger from among themselves, declaring, worship Allah alone. You have no God other than him. Will you not then fear him? But the chiefs of his people who disbelieved, denied the meeting with Allah in the hereafter, and were spoiled by the world luxuries we have provided for them, said to the masses, this is only a human like you. He eats what you eat and drinks what you drink. And if you ever obey a human like yourselves, then you will certainly be losers. Does he promise you that once you are dead and reduced to dust and bones, you will be brought forth alive? Impossible. Simply impossible is what you are promised. There's nothing beyond our worldly life. We die, others are born, and none will be resurrected. He is no more than a man who has fabricated a lie about Allah, and we will never believe in him. The blast. The messengers prayed, my Lord, help me, because they have denied me. Allah responded, soon they will be truly regretful. Then the mighty blast overtook them with justice, and we reduced them to rubble. So away with the wrongdoing people. More prophets. Then we raised other generations after them. No people can advance their doom, nor can they delay it. Then we sent our messengers in succession. Whenever a messenger came to his people, they denied him. So we destroyed them one after the other, reducing them to cautionary tales. So away with the people who refused to believe. Prophet Musa, or Prophet Moses, and Prophet Aaron. Then we sent Moses and his brother with our signs and compelling proof to Pharaoh and his chiefs, but they behaved arrogantly and were tyrannical people. They argued, will we believe in two humans like ourselves, whose people are slaves to us? So they rejected them both, and so were among those destroyed. And we certainly gave Moses the scripture, so perhaps his people will be rightly guided. Prophet Jesus and his mother, and we made the son of Mary and his mother a sign, and gave them refuge on high ground, a suitable place for rest with flowing water. One way, O messengers, eat from what is good and lawful and act righteously. Indeed, I fully know what you do. Surely this religion of yours is only one, and I am your Lord, so fear me alone. Yet the people have divided into different sects, each rejoicing in what they have. So leave them, O prophet, in their heedlessness for a while. Do they think, since we provide them with wealth and children, that we hasten to honor them with all kinds of goods? No, they are not aware. The true believers, surely those who tremble in awe of their Lord, and who believe in the revelations of their Lord, and who associate none with their Lord, and who do whatever good they do with their hearts fearful, knowing that they will return to their Lord. It is they who race to good deeds, always taking the lead. We never require of any soul more than what it can afford. And with us is a record which speaks the truth. None will be wrong. The disbelievers. But the hearts of those who disbelieve are oblivious to all of this. And they have other evil deeds opposite to this, in which they are engrossed. But as soon as we seize their elites with torment, they start to cry for help. They will be told, do not cry for help today. Surely you will never be saved from us. Indeed, my revelations were recited to you, but you used to back away in disgust, boasting of the sacred house and babbling nonsense about the Quran by night. Why the denial? Is it because they have never contemplated the word of Allah, or because there has come to them something that did not come to their forefathers, or because they failed to recognize their messenger and so they denied him, or because they say he is insane? In fact, he has come to them with the truth, but most of them are resentful of the truth. Had the truth followed their desires, the heavens, the earth, and all those in them would have certainly been corrupted. In fact, we have brought them the means to their glory, but they turn away from it. Or is it because you, O Prophet, or asking them for tribute, but the reward of your Lord is best, for he is the best provider, and surely you are calling them to the straight path. But those who disbelieve in the hereafter are certainly deviating from that path, those persisting in denial. Even if we had mercy on them and removed their affliction, they would still persist in their transgression, wandering blindly. And we have already seized them with torment, but they never humbled themselves to their Lord, nor did they submissively appeal to him. But as soon as we open for them a gate of severe punishment, they will be utterly desperate in gratitude to the Almighty. He is the one who created for you hearing, sight, and intellect, yet you hardly give any thanks. And he is the one who has dispersed you all over the earth, and to him you will all be gathered. And he is the one who gives life and causes death, and to him belongs the alternation of the day and night. Will you not then understand? But they just say what their predecessors said. They said, once we are dead and reduced to dust and bones, will we really be resurrected? We have already been promised this, as well as our forefathers earlier. This is nothing but ancient fables. Almighty Allah, ask them, O Prophet, to whom belong the earth and all those on it. If you really know, they will reply to Allah. Say, why are you not then mindful? And ask them, who is the Lord of the seven heavens, the Lord of the mighty throne? They will reply, Allah. Say, will you not then fear him? Ask them also, in whose hands is the authority over all things, protecting all, while none can protect against him, if you really know. They will reply, Allah. Say, how are you then so deluded? In fact, we have brought them the truth, and they are certainly liars. One true God.
In other surahs, they mentioned, by the way, you should consider starting a career in reading books, narrating books, Sheikh Yusuf. You can make some good money if Allah wishes.
Inshallah. Inshallah, Ya Rabbi.
So nice. I didn't want to cut you. But in other surahs, like it says, "Qul lillah" to the Prophet. When the question's asked to them, who is the Lord of the heavens? I think in Surah An'am, and the Lord of the throne, the great throne. But here it says, "Sayaquluna Allah, sayaquluna lillah." And again, it's a reminder that the Meccans and the Quraysh believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his ultimate authority. And there are some discussions about perhaps, they had the belief of Tawheed Rububiyyah, but not the Tawheed Uluhiyyah, the oneness in God's dominicality, but not in terms of his lordship. They can be mentioned like that. But yeah, very beautiful.
One of the things too that the translation brings something out with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is pretty much asked. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam is very interesting here. I didn't really pay attention to it before in this way. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam, and actually this brings up something that Dr. Taha Jabir rahmatullahi alayhi, which just came to mind right now. May Allah have mercy on him and accept from him, inshallah.
Ameen.
That it brings up the whole issue of the question, and that was something that he was always bringing up. Dr. Taha Jabir was one of the top scholars of Usul al-Fiqh. He had studied Imam Fakhr al-Din al-Razi extremely well. And he had his own critiques and so on of him. So he understood Usul al-Fiqh, he understood the Kalam methodology as well. But one of the things that he has said, he was one of the great scholars of Iraq, graduate of Al-Azhar al-Sharif, contemporary scholar. But one of the things that he has said is that the Quran has this system of posing questions. But he mentioned it in the terms of how it is that the scholar should teach the people, and the scholar himself or herself should learn how to formulate questions and then look to the Quran to respond to those questions, right? As a way of building knowledge and building understanding. But here, if you notice, the Quran in this series, in Jazakumullah Khairan to those who did the thematic tafsir, and through 84 through 90, there's a series of questions that are being brought to the table with regard to what is belief in reality. But the people are not being told what to believe. They're being questioned, they're being used, questions are being used so that they have to engage and they have to respond to these questions of belief. They're being, their minds, and in that sense, there's a taklif. And this is what the scholars of ilm al-kalam, they talk about the issue of taklif. But here they're being asked specifically not to prove the existence of the finitude or finitude of the universe, but here they're being asked questions about the nature of reality that will bring them to belief. It's an amazing process. It's an amazing process that that the Quran is going through, and you kind of see that usage of questions almost as though we shouldn't force upon people what we believe. We should open up the space so that they think through what they believe, and see, questions that we use should be so well constructed that it leads them to Quranic belief. But they have to come to that conclusion, on their own. And I kind of felt that the Quran there, what it was doing is something that we shouldn't underestimate.
And sometimes Muslim cultures, even in places where should be gatherings of knowledge, we promote a type of culture where sometimes people questioning their thoughts, or they cannot speak out loud, their imaginations. It could be in the form of doubts, or but the Quran brings everything out and it addresses it in the form of this question and answer. Yeah, I think we have a lot to learn. We have a long way to go to become Quranic. We call the group that organizes this Quranification, right? Inshallah. We have a lot to go through, because a lot of things, even in our circles of knowledge, sometimes have been, where a particular scholar is very well known, there's so much haiba around him, people stop asking questions and the opposite of knowledge takes place. Ignorance is promoted in those sometimes, but the Quran is promoting it. And that's why our mother Aisha, she even asked the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, you're saying this, but the Quran says this, how is that? That's a very healthy culture of asking questions.
And to be honest with you, I know that we have the time constraints. I've always felt, in my experience with the Risale Noor, Imam Badiuz Zaman or Imam Sayyid Nursi, Rahmatullahi alayhi's magnum opus in Islamic sciences and Quranic knowledge. I've always felt that the Risale Noor, especially you find in the words, put a lot of focus on words, flashes, and letters. Those were the areas that I was focusing on most. But I kind of felt that it was, even if you look at the Methnawi as well, it was always, I felt like it was a training ground to come back to be sensitive to the Quran. And even my advice to myself and the students of the Risale Noor is that go back to the Quran with the sensitivity that you're gaining in the Risale Noor. Don't stay stuck in the Risale Noor. Go back to the Quran itself and kind of pick out, kind of look to see how it is that Badiuz Zaman was reading the Quran, how he was extracting points, detailed points of belief directly from the Quran and also from the creation. And if we can do that, that dual turn, where we're going to the Quran, going to the Risale in that sense, I think that we ourselves will be able to extend the Risale. We will truly be students of the Risale Noor in that sense. But if we just lock ourselves in, like what you were just saying, and it's just that's not what the Risale wants, because the Risale is not meant to just be taken as a series of ideas. Is training our mind. It's training our mind to break from the philosophy of the age, which is leading us to doubt, and bringing us to the Quran to be grounded in that sense of yaqeen.
Ustaz Ahmed, I've asked, inshallah, Sheikh Yusuf, we were studying some aspects of the Risale Nur Mathwa and Nuriya in Arabic. Inshallah, if he can give some lectures, it would be great in English online.
I'd love to hear
maybe we can have Sheikh Yusuf come and visit Sydney as well. A lot of brothers and sisters are enjoying his commentary. Sheikh Yusuf, alayk and tara down under.
The land of kangaroos.
No.
Inshallah. One true God. Allah has never had any offspring, nor is there any God besides him. Otherwise, each God would have taken away what he created, and they would have tried to dominate one another. Glorified is Allah above what they claim. He is the knower of the seen and He is the knower of the seen and unseen. Exalted is He above what they associate with Him. Advice to the Prophet: say, O Prophet, my Lord, should you show me what they are threatened with? Then, my Lord, do not count me among the wrongdoing people. We are indeed able to show you what we have threatened them with. Respond to evil with what is best. We know well what they claim. And Ustad Ahmed, you were kind of bringing up this point before when you're talking about the issue of forgiveness. And say, my Lord, I seek refuge in you from the temptations of the devil, and I seek refuge in you, my Lord, that they even come near me. Too late for the wicked. When death approaches any of them, then cry, my Lord, let me go back so I may do good in what I left behind. Never. It is only a useless appeal they make, and there is a barrier behind them until the day they are resurrected. SubhanAllah. Judgment Day. Then when the trumpet will be blown, there will be no kinship between them on that day, nor will they even care to ask about one another. The successful ones. As for those whose scale is heavy with good deeds, it is they who will be successful. The losers. But those whose scale is light, they will have doomed themselves, staying in hell forever. The fire will burn their faces, leaving them deformed. It will be said, were my revelations not recited to you? But you used to deny them. They will cry, our Lord, our ill fate took hold of us, so we became a misguided people. SubhanAllah. Our Lord,
Here,
take
the
us out of
translation
this,
reads,
Father.
sorry, when the translation reads, our Lord, our own besetting wretchedness overcame us, and we were a people utterly lost astray. غلبت علينا شقوتنا. Someone once asked the scholar, saying, can we make these du'as of the people of Jahannam like here on earth, because they can't be forgiven, but maybe we can? And the scholar said, instead of saying رَبَّنَا غَلَبَتْ عَلَيْنَا شِقْوَتُنَا, we can say وَلَمْ أَكُنْ بِدُعَائِكَ شَقِيًّا. And he gave the example of Zakaria alayhi salam's dua, that I've never been disheartened in my prayer for you. Same root Arabic word. The bit before verse 100, when they say, let me go back so I can do good deeds that I've left behind, the Quran says, by no means, verily they are the empty words of someone like him. إِنَّهَا كَلِمَةٌ هُوَ قَائِلُهَا. It's just a word that he's saying. It's a very nice expression. It's a bit... Naam, tafaddal, Ustaz Yusuf. Sorry, I cut you halfway.
There's an aesthetic quality to Surat al-Mu'minun that, though, especially depending on who reads it, you feel that aesthetic quality. This is definitely kind of like a high level case discussion between believers and disbelievers. there's a definitely an argument being made about the case of the believers, and the reality of the disbelievers is being made. Even their arguments are being taken and considered and shown to be futile, as a lesson to those that come after. The point that you mentioned, when they talked about, being overtaken by their conditions. If we notice the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, the difficulty that we know society is corrupt. So we shouldn't tell people, yeah, society, is not corrupt. Society can be corrupting. Human interaction can be corrupting. But the prophets, alayhim salam, you notice they overcame the circumstances. They overcame their traumas, their circumstances, the harshness of life. They were able to overcome all of that and still maintain their principles with Allah. But here, the disbelievers are using that as an excuse. You know what I'm saying? Like, the circumstances of life just took us out. Whereas the Quran is pulling us away from circumstances. Don't let tyranny hold you from belief. Don't let desire hold you from belief. Don't let riches and material wealth hold you from belief. Don't let your presumptions and your doubts hold you from belief. It's really, it's kind of like if you're in the ocean and people are drowning and you're throwing them, you're throwing them a lifesaver, so to speak. It's throwing us a lifesaver from all of these things in life, which will rob us of belief. And then at the end, one of the things that was said is like, as for those whose scale is heavy with good deeds, it is they who will be successful. That's a different type of achievement in life. That versus just for those that die with the biggest retirement package, or those that accumulate this amount of education and degrees on the earth, or those that they accomplished, they toured the whole of the world. Not to say that those things are not good. They're great things. They're from the blessings of Allah. But the Quran puts that pinnacle of what we should be aiming at, that our lives should be constructing good in the world and good for ourselves in the hereafter. He says Allah will respond. They will cry, our Lord, our ill fate took hold of us, so we became a misguided people. Our Lord, take us out of this fire. Then if we ever return to denial, we will truly be wrongdoers. Allah will respond, be despised in there. Do not ever plead with me again. SubhanAllah. Indeed, there was a group of my servants who used to pray, our Lord, we have believed, so forgive us and have mercy on us. For you are the best of those who show mercy. But you were so busy making fun of them that it made you forget my remembrance. And you used to laugh at them. Today I have indeed rewarded them for their perseverance. They are certainly the triumphant, fleeting world. He will ask them, how many years did you remain on earth? They will reply, we remained only a day or a part of a day. But ask those who keep count. He will say, you only remained for a little while if only you knew. Did you then think that we had created you without purpose? And that you would never be returned to us? One God only. Exalted is Allah, the true King. There's no God worthy of worship except Him, the Lord of the honorable throne. Whoever invokes besides Allah another God for which they can have no proof, they will surely find their penalty with their Lord. Indeed, the disbelievers will never succeed. Advice to the Prophet. Say, O Prophet, my Lord, forgive and have mercy, for you are the best of those who show mercy.
This dua is repeated twice in this page. One in the wording of those who, the believers, the dua they used to make. Rabbana ighfir lana, Rabbana amana faghfir lana warhamna wa anta khairur rahimin. In the same pattern, but without the pronoun attached. It says, Rabbi ighfir warham wa anta khairur rahimin. It's the most succinct version of these du'as.
You know, one of the things that I think I wanted to share this, especially if there's any people that have converted to Islam with us, or even just in general, first generation Muslims. As I wanted to share extremely briefly my experience. You know, I came into Islam from Catholicism, and I'm not going to say I didn't have experience of a deep spirituality in Catholicism, because I did. And it had its own problems and so on and so forth. But alhamdulillah, that it led me to Islam. And the reason why I mentioned that is because a lot of times when you come from a different orientation, we're used to praying, we're used to making supplications in our own words. In our own words. And dua is not something to be played with, it's something extremely serious. It's considered to be the weapon of the believer. And so the addiya, which is the plural of dua, that we find in the Quran here, the question may come, why do Muslims or why is it that we're obligated to make these formulaic dua? We go to these books, you know, we take these dua from these books. Why can't we just make dua on our own? Well, yes, you can make dua on your own, but here we're being taught how to make dua that expresses the highest levels of tawheed and the highest levels of human need. Whereas,
and the highest levels of etiquette of making dua.
Yes, the highest levels of etiquette. And so sometimes, you know, and I've struggled with that for years myself. I learned that the hard way, because it was one time when someone had taught me, don't ask for patience. If you're asking for patience in a time of hardship, I always use this example, and it's very scary. A lot of times hardship hits us. What do? Or situations that we ask for patience. But what we don't realize is asking for patience is asking to be tested. We're asking to be tested in the time of patience. We should ask for strength, you know, and there's times where we have senses of desperation. Some people say, oh, well, you know, a Muslim shouldn't despair this, that. Well, the issue is like, no, that desperation, take it to Allah. But we learned, like what Dr. Sadiq says, the etiquette or the path of dua by these adiyah, because they're special. They're being said in a context. And when it's different than just reading them from a dua book. When you see the experience of the prophets, especially Surah Al-Anbiya, we saw it very clearly. You know, that each prophet, alayhi salam, had like his dua. Even Maryam, alayhi salam, she had her dua. You know, so and you see the circumstances that she is around. The Quran is giving us a glimpse into that human condition. So I advise myself and everyone, you know, to be mindful of that. Why is it that we learn these formulaic dua? We, you know, because they teach us how to reach out to Allah wa ta'ala. That doesn't mean you eliminate your own personal dua, but it should be molded. We should learn how to mold those that we make, you know, after these, so that we get more and more in tune with the reality of our relationship with Allah in the right way.
We can memorize this as just Rabbi Ighfir warham wa anta khairur rahimin, and say it in our prayers, in our sajdas. Maybe I'll just read a little bit, Jazakallah khair, Shaykh, of just the beginning of Surah Nur, and then we'll pause it, right, Ustaz Ahmed?
Yeah, so we've got about 7 minutes, inshallah.
Yeah, okay. If you just go a little bit down. The light, this Medinan surah takes its name from the divine light mentioned in verses 35 to 36. A large portion of the surah deals with the issue of sexual misconduct hinted at in the previous surah. The surah also offers some guidelines to the believers on how they should have reacted to false rumors against our mother Aisha radiallahu anha, the Prophet's wife. Other issues are discussed, including modesty, entering people's homes, forced prostitution, hypocrisy, and false accusations of adultery. Allah's power, compliance with His judgment, and obedience to the Prophet are highly emphasized. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, most merciful. The introduction. This is a surah which we have revealed and made its rulings obligatory, and revealed in it clear commandments so that you may be mindful. Punishment for fornication. As for female and male fornicators, give each of them 100 lashes, and do not let pity for them make you lenient in enforcing the law of Allah, if you truly believe in Allah and the last day, and let a number of believers witness their punishment. Like for like, a male fornicator would only marry a female fornicator or idolatress, and a female fornicator would only be married to a fornicator or idolater. This is all forbidden to the believers. Can you quickly click on 695, Ustaz Ahmed? It is reported in a hadith in Tirmidhi that Marthad ibn Abi Marthad asked if he could marry Anaq, a pagan prostitute he befriended in Mecca before he accepted Islam. So this verse was revealed. However, if someone committed a sin then later repented genuinely, they will be accepted by Allah and the rest of the believers. This is important. Otherwise, we may read this verse. I've seen people, young people, misunderstand things. This is where people are still in another faith, not after Islam and Tawbah. Allahu Alam. Unsupported accusations. Those who accuse chaste women of adultery and fail to produce 4 witnesses, give them 80 lashes each, and do not ever accept any testimony from them, for they are indeed the rebellious. According to the Hanafis, their testimony should never be accepted. Except those who repent afterwards and mend their ways, then surely Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. Accusation to one's wife, and those who accuse their wives of adultery but have no witness except themselves, the accuser must testify, swearing 4 times by Allah that he is telling the truth, and a 5th oath that Allah may condemn him if he is lying. For her to be spared from the punishment, she must swear 4 times by Allah that he is telling a lie, and a 5th oath that Allah may be displeased with her if he is telling the truth. I don't think it's may Allah be displeased with her. It's a bit more, the Arabic is a bit more heavier. It's وَالْخَامِسَةَ أَنَّ غَضَبَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهَا إِنْ كَانَ مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. May Allah's wrath and anger be upon her if he is telling the truth. Verse 10, you would have suffered had it not been for Allah's grace and mercy upon you, and had Allah not been accepting of repentance, all wise. Those who slandered the Prophet's wife. Indeed, those who came up with the outrageous slander are a group of you. Do not think this is bad for you. Rather, it is good for you. They will be punished each according to their share of the sin. As for their mastermind, he will suffer a tremendous punishment. According to some hadith reports, the chief of the Munafiqs, Abdullah bin Ubay as-Salul, was the one who carried the majority of it. وَالَّذِي تَوَلَّى كِبْرَهُ, of the slander. He started it. How the believers should have reacted. If only the believing men and women had thought well of one another when you heard this rumor and said, this is clearly an outrageous slander. Why did they not produce 4 witnesses? Now, since they have failed to produce witnesses, they are truly liars in the sight of Allah. Had it not been for Allah's grace and mercy upon you in this world and the hereafter, you would have certainly been touched with a tremendous punishment for what you have plunged into. When you passed it from one tongue to the other and said with your mouths what you had no knowledge of, taking it lightly while it is extremely serious in the sight of Allah. Our mother Aisha said, I thought perhaps a dream would be revealed to the Prophet, revealing my innocence, but I had no idea that a whole page of Revelation, 11 verses from the top of the 7 heavens are going to come. Allah says they took it lightly, but while it is extremely serious in the sight of Allah. If only, verse 16, Ustaz Ahmed, if you don't mind just scrolling down. If only you had said upon hearing it, how can we speak about such a thing? Glory be to you. This is a heinous slander. Allah forbids you from ever doing something like this again if you are true believers, and Allah makes His commandments clear to you, for Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the companions they should have thought better, husnul dhan. And not only that, they should have spoken up against it. Sometimes not speaking up is worse. And to accept rumors about people sometimes is to think of yourself better as them. Whereas we know in this story, Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, he said to his wife, "Have you heard this?" She's like, "Yes." He said, "Would you have done this?" She goes, "No way." And he said, "Well, Aisha is better than you." And she said the same thing to him. He said, "If you were alone, would you have done this?" "No." Then he said, "The companion that was with Aisha, he's better than you." So just by them seeing themselves as worse off than others, it prevented them. And according to some tafsirs, where it says, "If only you had said this," Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sort of commanding and praising what they had said, those companions. May Allah be pleased with them. Warning to slanderers. We'll just finish this page and pause it there, Ustaz Ahmed. Indeed, those who love to see indecency spread among the believers will suffer a painful punishment in this life and the hereafter. Allah knows and you do not know. You would have suffered had it not been for Allah's grace and mercy upon you, and had Allah not ever been ever gracious, most merciful. O believers, do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Whoever follows Satan's footsteps, then let them know that he surely bids all to immorality and wickedness. Had it not been for Allah's grace and mercy upon you, none of you would have ever been purified. But Allah purifies whoever He wills, and Allah is all-hearing, all-knowing. وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ. It mentions so many times. If it wasn't for God's grace and mercy, مَا زَكَى مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ. None of you will be purified. Do not let the people of virtue and affluence among you swear to suspend donations to their relatives, the needy and the immigrants in the cause of Allah. Let them pardon and forgive. Do you not love to be forgiven by Allah? And Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. We know our master Abu Bakr who didn't want to spend on his own relative because of the slander he got involved in against Aisha. But after hearing this verse, he goes, "Of course, I want Allah to forgive me." And he kept spending on him. Maybe we can pause it here. Oh no, let's finish this section. Surely those who accuse chaste, unsuspecting, believing women are cursed in this life and the hereafter, and they will suffer a tremendous punishment. On the day their tongues, hands, and feet will testify against them for what they used to do. Usually the hands and feet are mentioned elsewhere. Here the tongues, because the context is more about slander and false speech, is mentioned first. Verse 25, on that day Allah will give them their just penalty in full, and they will come to know that Allah alone is the ultimate truth. Ustaz Ahmed, I know we've said we'll start 6:15, but can we start one day early, tomorrow maybe? Just so we can catch up a bit. We are not catching up on the juz.
Yeah, inshallah. Maybe we'll go back to 6 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah, just tomorrow for 6 o'clock.
Okay.
And then maybe, hopefully, we would have caught up on the juz.
But we still go till 7:45, I guess.
We'll still go to 7:45, yes.
5 minutes, inshallah. Okay. No worries. All right.
So we stopped at verse 24.
26.
26, sorry.
26, yeah. Inshallah.
I think one thing that can be done, if people kind of read this section on their own as well, so the Nur, and they kind of like pause on it. I mean, I know it's, the time difference is makes it an issue, but I think if people kind of reflect a little bit, then it kind of eases up with the reflection points, and maybe we can just read straight through this and catch up.
Sure.
Even though this sort of demands some commentary, but
we can also use the weekend as well, perhaps just slightly
catch up
sessions, inshallah.
Yeah, that's a good idea too, actually.
Yeah.
Inshallah. No worries.
Right.
Okay.
Jazakallah khair.
Inshallah.
May Allah forgive us and accept from us.